Alright, in this tutorial right here, I'm going to show you how to solve literal equations in Algebra 1. Now, in Algebra 2 video, I'll show you and post it later on, but I just want to introduce to you the basic ideas of literal equations, what they are, and how to deal with the problems associated with them. Alright, so what are literal equations? Literal equations means you're literally solving for a specific variable given a set equation. So what I'm going to do here to solve for literal equations, I'm going to have to do some algebra and do set problems and set experiments and ways to solve this. Alright, so I get problems like v equals IR, f equals ma, e equals mc squared, etc. Problems, fancy equations. So sometimes they want you to solve for a specific variable given that equation. If you want to solve for r and v equals IR or something like that. So there's ways we're going to systematically do this. And I'm going to write down, you might want to write down some notes before I start the lesson, so I'm going to talk about that. So let's say you have a problem where a times b is equal to c. And you want to solve for a. They're asking you to solve for a. So what I'm going to do here is I want to notice how this is a multiplication problem, right? So we have a times b is equal to c. So to undo multiplication, as we know from an earlier class, we're going to simply divide, alright? Because multiplication and division are opposites, right? So a times b is equal to c. I'm going to simply, to solve for a, I'm going to divide each side by b. Just like that. Alright? Then the b terms mark out on this side of the equation of the a. So a is therefore equal to c divided by b. Alright, if that makes sense to you. What about this one? A minus 4 is equal to 10. Solve for a. Alright, whoa. How do I do this? Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just simply add 4 to each side of the equation. And the reason why I do is because notice how it's negative 4 on this side of the equation. But on that side of the equation, it'd be positive 4. And then I want to get a by itself. So I'm going to mark these two out because addition undoes subtraction, right? And likewise, subtraction undoes addition, right? So that marks it out. So a is equal to 10 plus 4, which is 14. Alright, how about this one? The square root of a is equal to b. Solve for a. Alright, so when you have a square root and it's asking you to find a, which is under the square root in this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply square each side. And knowing the property of square roots and squares, if you know solve for it, a square number takes away the square root. That's exactly what you do. Therefore, a, because you get mark these out, is equal to b squared, because you have b squared right here. What about this one? C squared is equal to m. Solve for c. Alright, so when you have c squared is equal to m, when you have a problem like this, what you want to do is you want to take the square root of each side. So c is equal to plus or minus m. And this is the square root of m. Plus or minus the square root of m. Don't forget to put the plus or minus there because that's important. So when I start talking about quadratic equations and all that, you would understand a little bit more why. But make sure you put the plus or minus when you're taking square roots and like that. Because there's two possible solutions. Alright, what about this one? B cubed is equal to a. Solve for b. So when you have a b cubed, what you want to do is you want to take the cube root of each side, just like this. So the cubes will mark out. So I get b is equal to cubed root of a. So that's just a couple of examples. And then if you have a problem with a fraction, let's say that you have 5 or 7 over 5a is equal to b, and you want to solve for a. When you have a fraction like this, you want to multiply each side by the reciprocal of that fraction. So if it's 5, or if it's 7 over 5, it would be 5 over 7. You want to multiply each side by 5 over 7. Therefore, the 5 over 7 times the 7 over 5 will mark out, so you get a is equal to 5 over 7b. Alright, now I'm going to actually get into the actual talking of how to solve literal equations with actual real examples of real equations. Number 1, v equals IR, solve for r. So a property I showed you earlier was when you have multiplication. So what undoes multiplication? What undoes multiplication is division. So it's asking us to solve for r. So there's an I in front of the r. So what I want to do is I want to take away I somehow. And in order to do that, I'm going to just divide, right? Each side by I. So the I terms mark out on that side of the equation. So I'm left with v over I is equal to r. Alright? I'm going to give you another one here real quick. F is equal to MA, solve for A. Alright, so I want to solve for A. Notice how there's an M times A on this side. So I'm going to simply divide each side by M. The M's marked out on this side. So F over M is equal to A. Alright, number 3. Now this one's a little bit different. Notice how we have C plus 5 is equal to 9. And you want to solve for C. So this is a very straightforward problem. So what I'm going to do to solve for C is I'm going to simply, because we got a positive 5 on this side, I'm going to take away 5 from each side. Now, as you recall, and we all know this already, that subtraction undoes addition. And likewise, addition undoes subtraction. And you could think about it. So it will be positive on this side, but it's going to be negative 5 on this side. So you're taking 5 away from 9, and you're taking 5 away from 5 here. So that marks out C is equal to 4. Alright? How about this one? This one's a two-step problem. So we're going to apply to what we learned in the last 3 examples. So this one is asking for x. Y equals mx plus b. So this is a slope-intercept formula. Well, I'll talk about that later on, what that is, but we're just solving for x. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to work my way towards mx, so I can divide eventually. So what I'm going to first do to get solve for x is I'm going to, notice how we have a positive b on this side, plus b. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first take away the b. So this marks out the b, because I'm working my way towards the inside. That's exactly what I'm doing. So I get y minus b is equal to mx. Alright, so notice this. Now this is just a simple division problem at this point. So what I'm going to do here to get for x, I'm going to divide each side by m. Because remember, division undoes multiplication. And likewise, multiplication undoes division. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just mark out the m's right there on that one side. And we'll get y minus b over m is equal to x. Number 5 equals mc squared for c. Alright, so how would we solve for c in this equation? So notice how we got c squared. Alright, so we can't just divide each side by it and then have c squared on one side of the equation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to simply do a couple more steps, which is going to be the next step to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first divide each side by m. So therefore I could get c squared on one side of the equation. So e over m is equal to c squared. So notice how it's c squared, not just c. So what I'm going to do is, like I showed you in one example, is I'm going to take the square of each side to get rid of the c squared. Alright, so what's going to be, the answer is equal to plus or minus the square root of e over m is equal to c. And that's how you solve for c in this equation. Alright, how about this one? F is equal to 9 over 5c plus 32 for c. Alright, so what am I going to do here first? What I want to do here is I want to work my way towards 9 over 5c, ultimately for c. So what I'm going to first do is I'm going to subtract each side by 32. Alright, so f minus 32 is equal to 9 over 5c. So notice how there's a fraction, 9 over 5 in front of the c. So what I want to do here to get rid of that fraction is I want to be 1c on one side of the equation and then solve for c, because that's what ultimately I want to do. Is I'm going to multiply each side of the equation by the reciprocal of the fraction. So it's 9 over 5, so the reciprocal of that's going to be 5 over 9. So that cancels out. And make sure you do it on both sides of the equation. So 5 over 9f minus 32 is thus equal to c.